Hello, thank you for coming to watch my video. I am 1 year since the diagnosis of multiple myeloma. I'm going to talk about the last year and kind of reflect on what has happened and think of all of the good times and the bad times that I've had going through the treatment and give you an update as to how I am doing now. Last year I was having some back troubles and I wanted to go to the orthopedic doctor to get a procedure done on my back, but the doctor wanted to do an MRI just to be safe that I wasn't doing, nothing else had happened with my back that he didn't already know about. With that MRI, it did show that I had some changes in my bone marrow, so I ended up having some blood tests, and those blood tests said that I needed more blood tests. So I was eventually referred to a hematologist, oncologist. When I got there, the blood tests that they had done further showed that I needed to have a bone marrow biopsy and a PET scan. Within a couple of days, I was having the bone marrow biopsy, had the PET scan done. I was then diagnosed within 1 week of first meeting the doctor. Actually, it was probably more about a week and a half. So I went into the office with my husband and my mom, and she was very straightforward. I appreciate my doctor that she can just tell me what's going on, and she doesn't sugarcoat anything, which I like. I'm that kind of patient that just wants to know what's going on. So she came in the room and she told me what the diagnosis was. We kind of already had an inkling because of what the blood tests had been showing. I was pretty good for about 5 minutes while she was talking about what it is and what we're gonna do. And then I kind of looked at my husband and my mom, and that's when I kind of lost it. The doctor let us be for a few minutes, and we kind of just hugged and cried. I literally cried for a couple of minutes, and then I contained myself because at that point I needed to hear what the doctor had to say and ask the questions that I needed to ask. It was about 2 to 3 weeks before I actually started the chemo treatment, but in between that time I had to do some kind of maintenance stuff for myself. Go to the dentist. I had to get a tooth pulled. I had to go to a couple other doctors just to get things in the right track before I started the chemo process. June 25th, I believe, is the date that I actually started the first chemo. I got a port placed before I started chemo, and actually the day I got my port placed was the first day that I started chemo. So I went in, got the port placed at the hospital, then went over to the transfusion center, and I already had the port placed, so they were just able to hook me up with the chemo. At the time I was getting it, it didn't make me feel any different. I didn't have too many emotions about it. I just knew it was something that had to be done, so it was kind of like, let's start this, because I had a long road of treatments ahead of me. I was doing 9 months of treatments. That's 54 treatments. So every Monday and Tuesday I did IV infusion, which was carfilzomib. And then I did dexamethasone, that's a steroid. I took that every Monday. And I also took Revlimid, 21 days on and 7 days off, and I did that for 54 weeks. So while I was getting infusions, there were times where I had to get, it's a bone strengthener called Zometa, so I had to get that twice. The first time, it was about 2 days after, where I felt like I had the extreme flu, and my body hurt, I kind of had a fever, it just was really hard on me. The second time I got it, it did not do that to me. I didn't even know that I got it. It didn't change anything. I also got iron infusions because my iron was low, so I tried taking iron, but that wasn't doing anything for me. The doctor said that wouldn't do anything for me. I needed to get iron infusions. That did. I can't say that I felt 100% because I was getting chemo, but it did make me feel better. My first month of getting the IV chemo, I did get sick. I was trying to take Zofran for the nausea, but that wasn't enough for me, so I told the doctor at my next visit, and she prescribed me olanzapine. And at a very small dose, that was perfect enough to help me with my nausea, and it also helped me when I was not able to sleep well. Every month I would see the doctor, and the prior week I would go in and get a blood draw. They would be drawing blood for everything. I would also have to do a 24-hour urine collection because multiple myeloma can affect your kidneys and your liver. Well, I think the medications can affect your liver. So they had to do all these blood tests to make sure that everything was still functioning okay. Some of the medications had side effects. Dexamethasone, the steroid, every time I took that on Monday, by Wednesday or Thursday, my face would be peeling like I had a sunburn. And actually on Tuesday, my face would get red. Then by Thursday, my face would be peeling. So it did act like I had a sunburn. It didn't hurt at all. It just peeled. My weeks would sometimes be like a roller coaster. On Monday, I would take the dexamethasone, and I would stay up probably around 3 or 4 o'clock at night because I couldn't fall asleep. I was physically tired, but yet my body and my heart and my mind were kind of racing. So I would be up late that night. Tuesday I would still be up late, maybe till midnight or so. And then Wednesday I would want to go to bed early. I would be very tired at that point. Also, having the chemo on Monday and Tuesday, by Thursday, that's when I would start to not feel well. I would hurt. I would be extremely tired because of the chemo and because I stayed up so late the Monday and Tuesday. So I usually had Thursdays off of work so that I could stay home and rest and sleep. Fridays would also be a very tired day. Saturday and Sunday I'd be pretty good. Until I got to the later months of the chemo, it felt like I was having more of a reaction with my symptoms. I don't know if you want to call it symptoms. I was having it was getting more severe. I was tired and sleepy, and that would go into Saturday and Sunday sometimes. I had changes in the way food would taste to me. Some things that I always liked just didn't taste the same. I think that the steroid had a lot of effect on that. The steroid would make my tongue tingle, it would make my face tingle. When I was getting the IV chemo, everything seemed to be going perfectly fine until about I think it was around my 7th or 8th chemo. I was sitting there and they started the chemo, everything was fine, but then I started to get some hives on my chin and on my neck. They were more, I shouldn't say hives, it was more of a welt. I didn't know what was going on at first, so I kind of was taking my phone and doing a selfie so I could see what the hives looked like on my chin, and they started to tingle. So I called over the nurse. They shut off the IV immediately. They put Benadryl into my IV line and gave me a high dose of steroid, and they took my blood pressure, my temperature, and were just kind of monitoring me to see what was going on. Once they stopped it, I seemed to kind of go back to normal. So they checked with the doctor, and the doctor said to go ahead and start the treatment again. I finished that treatment. I went home. I felt fine all day and all night, but I woke up in the morning and I was swollen. My lips were swollen, my nose was swollen, my eyes were swollen, and it was due to the chemo. So the next time I went in to get my treatment, they would have to do pre-medications because they still needed to give me the chemo. The pre-medications were Benadryl, more of the dexamethasone, and it was either Pepsid or I think it was Pepsid. So I had to do those pre-medications before my IV treatment each time. That added about an hour to an hour and a half onto the treatment. My treatments took approximately 3 hours. Sometimes it would be 3.5 or 4. It just really depended. Mondays usually were a longer day because they had to draw blood before I could get my treatments, because I had to make sure I was well enough to get my IV chemo. Then with the pre-meds, that added on about an hour because they couldn't just give them to you right away. It took each thing took time to push through you. With the Benadryl, I was then started to get a reaction from the Benadryl. It would make my legs extremely achy, so I wasn't able to get the Benadryl at the 10-minute time. I had to get it at a half an hour, so that added the amount of time that I sat there. The facility that I was at to get my chemo was amazing. The nurses were wonderful. I was able to learn all of their names. They knew who I was when I walked in the door. I didn't even have to tell them who I was. They just said, "We have you checked in, Jackie. Go ahead and have a seat." They had a little kitchen that you could go and you could get something to drink like juice or ginger ale. They had some snacks like granola bars and Cheez-Its, and Cheez-Its were my favorite. You could have coffee or tea. It was just a really nice place. The chairs were reclinable, so you could sit back with them. They had a massager in the chair, and they also had heat. They also gave you warm blankets if you needed them, which were super wonderful. I brought my iPad with every time, and I was able to watch Netflix. I had several series that I watched over the time that I was there. Some other reactions that I noticed over the time was my skin did get extra dry. My muscles were very weak when I was getting on my chemo weeks. So I had a lot of trouble going up and down stairs because I just didn't feel like my legs were strong enough to take me up and down the stairs. I did gain weight, and I think that's because of the steroids that I was taking. It was a very high dose that I was taking every Monday, and then every Monday and Tuesday when I did the IV chemo, they gave me the additional steroids. So I was taking about 60 milligrams of dexamethasone each week, and I believe that's why I gained some weight. Every week that I took the steroid, it would change my voice, and I would have a hard time speaking sometimes just because it would be so gravelly and scratchy and dry. One thing that I never did before that changed when I was having chemo is that I like to have my beverages extremely cold. I had to have my water as cold as it could get. I started to drink some Gatorade. Mainly it was because I was having such bad muscle spasms that I started to drink Gatorade, and I had to have it over a full glass of ice. I was having such extreme muscle spasms. They were happening in my midsection, on my back, in my fingers, on my face, in my feet, my toes. I was just having them everywhere. So I did everything I could to try and help with those muscle spasms. I drank Gatorade. I drank as much fluids as I could possibly with water and Gatorade. I even tried pickle juice. I was taking a muscle relaxer each night before bed. It just seemed like nothing was helping those muscle spasms. I do believe that was a cause from the IV chemo, the carfilzomib. I do still get the muscle spasms now, but they're not like those muscle spasms. They were so bad that I sometimes almost got to the point of tears because they were so bad. One very good thing was I did not have hair loss. I actually felt like my hair got thicker and grew faster. One thing now, after I'm done with chemo, I am starting to have, I think it's natural hair loss, where you feel it's not clumps of hair, it's just a good amount of hair is coming out every time you brush your hair. So I think that's probably natural now that I'm not taking the steroid. I think the steroid was the cause of me not losing any hair, and I think it's, now that I'm not getting the steroid, I think it's the cause of me losing my hair. During this time, I've had a lot of different reactions from friends and family, and I wouldn't say anything is bad. It's just each person has their own different reaction. I've had some people there for me nonstop, and I've had some people checking in, and I've had some people just once in a while I'll hear from them, and that's okay. I know that this is not something easy for anybody to deal with. I'm confused about it. I've been wondering if I'm handling it normally, and I do think I am. I haven't been depressed. I haven't been overly upset. I just kind of have had to take one day at a time, and I kind of think that friends and family have to do the same thing. I wouldn't want anybody else to be in my shoes. I know it's something that everybody worries about. It's something that's on my mind every day. So I know that friends and family are thinking about it also. I really appreciate what everybody has done for me this last year. In the beginning, we had family and friends make frozen meals for us. I could just take things out of the freezer and throw it in the oven, so it was very easy. I had a wonderful neighbor make us a full dinner. It was amazing. A full dinner. She would bring it over, it would be hot and ready. It even come with dessert. It was something so special, and I would tell her she did not have to do that. She was doing it twice a week. Eventually I was able to get in the swing of things and be able to take on the meals myself. When I felt good, I could prepare something so that when Thursday came and I was just laid up, that it was, you know, kind of a fend for yourself night. The kids and my husband knew they could go into the cupboard. There was always something that they could make easy and take care of themselves. And frozen pizza, that was always there ready for them to eat. Sometimes when people are sick or get a diagnosis, they kind of wonder, why is this happening? I don't think I've even thought that. It is what it is kind of thing. I just kind of look at all of the positive things that are coming from it. I feel like I have a closer relationship with my husband, my kids, my mom, my dad, other friends and family. I know that I'm strong, so I can take this on no matter what happens. So I just want to say thank you to all my friends and family for being there for me. It means the world. So my cancer is undetectable at this point between my bone marrow biopsy and my blood tests. And the last IV chemo I received was on February 19th. I was randomized to determine if I was going to be on Revlimid for the next 2 years or if I was going to remain on it indefinitely, and I was randomized to be on it indefinitely. So at this time I take Revlimid 21 days on and 7 days off. And if you're not sure what Revlimid is, that is also a chemo. So basically I'm still on chemo, but they're giving it to me to keep my blood, keep the cancer undetectable. Multiple myeloma does not have a cure, so we just want to keep it undetectable as long as possible. We don't know what that's going to be. Hopefully it's going to be for years and years and years to come, but if that were to change, then I would be reevaluated as to what kind of treatment I would be put on. So at this point, I'm just happy to be cancer-free, and I will deal with and learn how to live with the chemo that I take, because it still comes with side effects. But I'm just happy to be at this point and have a success story at this time. Thank you for coming to watch my video. I really appreciate you taking the time. If you want to click like, please do so. If you want to make any comments, if I missed anything, if you have any questions about anything, please leave comments and I'll reply so that you can get an answer. Thank you. I love you. Five, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ready?
Did you read that?
Read the...
I can't read that.
You gotta read it.
You gotta read it.
Not out loud.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, whichever you prefer.
Take a picture of it.
not gonna read it?
Nope.
Good thing I can't read it.
Make, I was gonna say, make your dad read it. He'll cry.
All right. I want to get a good gong. You need a bigger string.
No. It's something new or something.
How you can cry?
Yep.
Now I need all my nurses.